The sun hung low over the dusty warehouse yard at Camp Red Rock, a U.S. military outpost carved into the harsh Djibouti hills. Young soldiers leaned against stacked crates, their laughter slicing through the dry air like a far-off shot. "Check that eagle head tattoo on her arm," one private sneered, pointing at Sergeant Amaya Whitaker, a logistics NCO in her mid-30s, sleeves rolled up as she tallied supplies. What's she gonna do, soar over the enemy and drop feathers? The group erupted in chuckles, brushing her off as just another paper pusher in fatigues. Then the SEAL team rolled in, 6 hardened operators emerging from a shadowed Humvee, beards caked with sand, eyes sweeping the yard like predators. Commander Rourke, the veteran with silver threading his temples, strode ahead. He halted abruptly, his sharp gaze fixing on something in Amaya's hand, a small, weathered challenge coin catching the light. Without hesitation, he snapped to rigid attention and saluted her first, sharp, unyielding. The yard went dead quiet. The mockers froze, exchanging glances. Why would a SEAL commander salute a logistics NCO first? Camp Red Rock, nestled in the rugged Djibouti landscape, a sprawling U.S. military outpost where the sun scorched the earth by day and the stars pierced the night like vigilant sentinels. Barbed wire fences encircled rows of Humvees, bunkers, and supply warehouses, with the constant hum of generators underscoring the rhythm of life. It served as a vital resupply hub for elite units, SEALs, Green Berets, Delta Force, rotating through for gear and intel before vanishing into the shadows of covert ops. Amid this machinery of war, the air carried the scent of diesel and dust, a reminder that every bolt and bullet mattered. Sergeant Amaya Whitaker embodied that quiet vigilance. As non-commissioned officer in charge of logistics, she oversaw the flow of essentials: ammunition crates, medical kits, encrypted radios. Her role demanded ironclad discipline, maintaining chain of custody for every item, ensuring SEALs remained unbroken from depot to deployment. A single tampered package could unravel a mission, so Amaya treated each manifest like a sacred trust. She rose before dawn, her boots polished to a gleam, her uniform crisp despite the heat. Reports were filed with precision, her soft but direct voice cutting through any slack. No weapon slung over her shoulder, yet her presence ensured the warriors stayed armed and connected. Amaya's edge came from her early days in communications tech, knowledge she applied without fanfare. She knew the base's power grids like the veins in her hand, rerouting lines during blackouts, troubleshooting comms failures that left others scrambling. In the supply warehouse, amid towering shelves of gear, she often worked alone, her eagle head tattoo a subtle memorial peeking from her rolled sleeve. It honored comrades lost in forgotten battles, but to her, it was just ink, a private anchor in a world that rarely looked deeper. One sweltering afternoon, as the heat waves danced off the tarmac, Lieutenant Harlan Boone approached her desk with a stack of requisition forms. A junior officer, fresh from stateside training, Boone carried the confidence of rank, but the haste of inexperience. "Sergeant Whitaker, we've got a convoy idling out there. Just sign off on these generators. Standard issue, no issues." Amaya took the papers, her dark eyes scanning methodically. The serial numbers leapt out at her, mismatched against the inventory logs. She cross-referenced with her ledger, fingers tracing columns of data. "Sir, these don't match. The tags on the crates show a different sequence. Could be a shipping error or something deliberate. Releasing them risks a breach in the chain."
Boone waved it off, glancing at his watch. "Come on, it's probably a typo. Sign it and let's move. The team's waiting." She held firm, her posture unyielding, yet respectful. "With all due respect, Lieutenant, chain of custody isn't optional. One faulty generator could leave operators in the dark. Literally. Let me verify." She pulled the crates forward, inspecting the seals under the warehouse lights. Sure enough, a subtle tamper mark on one edge confirmed her suspicion. She resealed them properly and drafted a corrected form. This prevents a bigger headache downrange. Better safe than scrambling in the field. Boone signed the revision, his earlier impatience tempered by a grudging nod. As he left, Amaya returned to her tasks, touching the challenge coin in her pocket, a small, worn token that felt heavier than its metal. In the quiet aftermath, she reflected on how the base thrived on unseen guardians like her. She understood the system better than those who ordered it. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over Camp Red Rock, the mess hall came alive with the evening rush. The air hummed with the clatter of metal trays and the low murmur of conversations, mingling with the savory aroma of stew simmering on the line and fresh brewed coffee steaming in mugs. Soldiers from across units gathered to unwind, their fatigues dusty from the day's drills, sharing stories that bridged the gap between boredom and the ever-present edge of duty. It was a place where hierarchies blurred slightly over shared meals, but not entirely. At a crowded table near the entrance, Specialist Vance held court among a knot of infantrymen, his voice carrying with the bravado of youth. He'd overheard whispers about Amaya's earlier standoff with Lieutenant Boone, the way she'd caught the mismatched cereals and held the line on chain of custody. To Vance, it was fodder for mockery. Heard Whitaker played detective today. Spotted some tiny error and acted like she saved the whole op. Come on, who's she kidding? That eagle head tattoo on her arm? Bet it's her idea of OPSEC. Like a secret code etched right there for the world to see. What, does it unlock hidden bunkers or something? His buddies chuckled, one slapping the table. Yeah, man, probably Morse code in the feathers. Dots and dashes for I'm tougher than I look. The laughter swelled, drawing glances from nearby tables. Vance leaned back, spotting Amaya as she entered the line, tray in hand. She moved with her usual quiet efficiency, selecting a modest plate of eggs, toast, and black coffee before claiming a solitary spot at the hall's edge. Her back to the room, facing a blank wall as if the noise were just distant wind. Undeterred, Vance raised his voice, ensuring it carried. Hey, Sergeant, spill it. That tattoo's got to be OPSEC gold, right? Implied code for all your deep knowledge? Or is it just mall art to impress the brass? The hall quieted a notch, forks pausing mid-bite. Lieutenant Elena Park, seated a few tables away with her intel team, observed the scene with keen interest. Park, with her sharp features and notebook always at hand, had noted Amaya's understated competence before, the way she navigated the base's systems without seeking applause. She watched now, curious how this would unfold. Amaya set her fork down deliberately, her shoulders remaining relaxed, her expression serene amid the scrutiny. She turned slightly, meeting Vance's gaze with steady calm. Specialist, what must be hidden I don't tattoo? Vance blinked, his smirk faltering like a misfired round. Wait, what? So it's not a code? Then why ink it up like some badge? She held his eyes a moment longer. OPSEC isn't about flaunting signals. It's about safeguarding what's truly vital. Some things stay concealed, not for show, but for survival. With that, she returned to her meal, the words lingering like an unspoken lesson. The group muttered, Vance's laugh forced and hollow now. Park jotted a quick note, intrigued by the deflection. As Amaya ate in silence, the hall's energy shifted subtly, a ripple of respect amid the fading jests. If not the tattoo, what is the real signal? Later that evening, as the desert chill seeped into Camp Red Rock, and the base lights cast elongated shadows across the tents, Commander Rourke requested a discreet meeting with Amaya in the operations annex. The space was sparse. A folding table, a few chairs, and maps pinned to canvas walls fluttering faintly in the breeze. Rourke, his face etched with the lines of countless missions, closed the flat behind him, sealing out the distant hum of generators. He regarded her with the weight of shared history, his gravelly voice low and measured. Sergeant Whitaker, do you still carry the coin? Amaya reached into her pocket, producing the small, tarnished challenge coin. It bore subtle engravings, a relic from shadows long past. She placed it on the table,
its metallic thud echoing softly. "Every day, sir. It's not just a token." Rourke nodded, his eyes tracing the coin's edges. "Good. That's the real signal in our world. A closed community marker, earned in fire and kept quiet. The tattoo on your arm? That's a memorial to the fallen. Nothing more. No codes, no secrets inked for show. OPSEC demands we protect what's vital without broadcasting it." He leaned forward, his presence like a steady anchor. "You're safeguarding more than logistics here, Amaya. That coin points to what you've been protecting all along, the unseen threads that hold this place together. Don't let the noise distract you. The real fight is in the silence." Amaya absorbed his words, a faint warmth kindling in her chest amid the cool air. Rourke's guidance felt like a bridge to her past, reminding her why she endured the underestimation. As he left, slipping back into the night, she pocketed the coin, its weight a quiet affirmation. The next morning, with the sun climbing high and baking the range in golden light, Lieutenant Elena Park sought Amaya out at the firing line. Park, her uniform neat and her expression earnest, carried a notebook and an M4 slung over her shoulder. The range echoed with sporadic pops from distant shooters, the scent of gun oil mingling with parched earth. "Sergeant," Art began, a touch of respect in her tone after witnessing the mess hall exchange, "I've been thinking about what you said last night. Teach me the salute report and how to shoot against backlight. I want to learn from experience like yours." Amaya set aside her maintenance tools, wiping her hands on a rag. She appreciated Park's initiative, seeing in the younger officer an eagerness that mirrored her own early days. "All right, Lieutenant. Salute is straightforward but life-saving. Size of the threat, activity observed, location precise, unit identifiers if any, time noted, equipment spotted. It's how we turn chaos into actionable intel, especially when comms fail. Handwritten if needed, clear and concise." They moved to a shaded firing position, the backlight from the rising sun creating harsh silhouettes on the targets. Amaya demonstrated, adjusting Park's stance. Against backlight, the glare plays tricks. Aim a hair low to compensate for the optical illusion. Steady your breath. Feel the rifle as an extension. Squeeze, don't jerk. Park fired a few rounds, her shots improving under Amaya's patient corrections. "You're bridging the gap here," Amaya said softly. "Generations overlap in places like this. My lessons from the field become yours, keeping the chain strong." Park lowered her weapon, a genuine smile breaking through. "Thank you, Sergeant. This feels like more than training. It's passing the torch." As they wrapped up, Amaya glanced toward the southern perimeter, a subtle unease stirring. Who will the salute save tomorrow night? As the afternoon sun began its descent, painting the Djibouti hills in hues of amber and rust, Sergeant Amaya Whitaker made her way from the firing range to the comms shack. The unease from her session with Lieutenant Park lingered, a subtle prickling at the back of her neck, like the calm before a sandstorm. Distant drills echoed across the base, the rhythmic thud of boots and the whine of machinery a familiar symphony. She volunteered for the evening shift at Checkpoint Echo, the southernmost gate, often dismissed as a quiet outpost amid the base's northern bustle. It suited her, solitary duty where vigilance thrived without applause. Inside the shack, Lieutenant Harlan Boone was reviewing intel briefs, his desk cluttered with maps and flickering screens. He looked up as Amaya entered, nodding in acknowledgement of her earlier precision with the requisitions. "Sergeant, you're manning Echo tonight. Good choice. It's low-key, but don't let that fool you. We've got chatter about potential drills or worse, EMP bursts or radar spoofing. Could blind the whole grid, make intruders ghosts on our scopes. Stay alert. Report anything off." Amaya absorbed the warning, her mind already mapping the vulnerabilities. "Understood, sir. I'll run a full check on the perimeter systems." Boone handed her a tablet with the latest threat assessments, his tone carrying a newfound respect. "You're thorough, Whitaker. If something hits, Echo might be the first to feel it, or the last standing." She headed out to the checkpoint,
the wind picking up and carrying fine grains of sand that stung her skin. At Echo, the gate loomed like a sentinel, wired fences stretching into the fading light. Amaya began her routine, inspecting sensors, testing alarms, but she lingered on the hardline, a buried, rugged cable network designed for redundancy, independent of the main power grid. It was her specialty, applied knowledge from comms days, and she'd noticed a minor fray during her last walkthrough. Kneeling in the dust, tools in hand, she serviced it methodically, splicing the wire, reinforcing the insulation, ensuring it could bypass any outage. The work was unglamorous, her hands dirtied, but it grounded her. She touched her eagle head tattoo briefly, a silent nod to past shadows, then slipped the challenge coin back into her pocket for reassurance.
As night crept in, stars emerging like watchful eyes, Amaya settled into her post. Rifle at the ready, she scanned the horizon, the base's lights twinkling behind her. Duty here felt pure, alone, alert, essential. Why is Echo the only post with power when everything else goes dark? It was 0420 hours, the deepest pocket of night, when the world held its breath, and Camp Red Rock shattered into chaos. A low, ominous hum vibrated through the ground, built into a sudden snap, like a giant switch flipping off. Lights across the base winked out in a domino cascade. Barracks plunged into shadow, ops centers went blind, perimeter floods extinguished like snuffed candles. The wind howled fiercer now, whipping dust into swirling eddies that scratched at tents and vehicles, carrying the gritty taste of the desert. Radio static erupted in earpieces, a frantic crackle of fragmented voices overlapping in confusion before silencing altogether, leaving only the eerie whine of failing electronics. Soldiers bolted from bunks, groping in the dark, shouts echoing, "Power's out! EMP?" Generators sputtered and died, radars blanked to empty screens, turning the once secure outpost into a vulnerable island in the void. Panic threaded through the ranks. In the command tent, officers fumbled for flashlights, their beams cutting erratic paths. "Radar spoofing has to be," one barked. "Check the northern perimeter, get QRF rolling." But comms were dead, no visuals, no alerts pinging. The base, alive with purpose moments ago, now felt exposed, its digital armor stripped away. Whispers of drills gone wrong or real threats mingled with the wind's moan, hearts pounding in the oppressive blackness. Yet at Checkpoint Echo, a solitary glow persisted. Sergeant Amaya Whitaker stood unwavering, her console emitting a faint, steady hum from the hardline she had serviced that very morning. The buried circuit, independent and rugged, bypassed the crippled grid, feeding minimal power to her alarms and low-light display. Her breath remained even, though the unease from earlier peaked, a primal sense that the darkness hid more than it revealed. She removed her earpiece, now useless white noise, and swept her gaze over the fence line, the wind tugging at her fatigues like insistent fingers. The hardline was her quiet triumph, a thread of resilience woven into the base's underbelly. A hardline is a physical cable network, buried and shielded, that operates independently of wireless or main power systems, essential for emergencies when everything else fails. An EMP, or electromagnetic pulse, can fry electronics across a wide area, disabling grids and comms in an instant. Radar spoofing tricks sensors by jamming or falsifying signals, allowing intruders to slip through undetected, like ghosts in the machine. Amaya flicked on a dim red light, just enough to outline her post without betraying her position. The horizon blurred in the dust storm, but something stirred in the distance, subtle shifts in the shadows, too deliberate for wind play. Her fingers tightened on her M4, safety off, as she narrowed her eyes. The base behind her scrambled in disarray, but here, at the forgotten edge, she was the first line. What is crawling beyond the fence? Silent as sand.
The silhouettes materialized from the swirling dust, 4 dark figures gliding toward the outer fence with predatory grace. They moved in tight formation, no lights, no chatter, professionals, or so it seemed. The lead one knelt at the wire, deploying non-sparking hydraulic cutters that sliced through the links with a muffled snip, silent as a whisper in the wind. No alarms blared. The blackout had silenced them all. Amaya Whitaker watched from her barricade at Checkpoint Echo, her heart steady, senses heightened by years of shadowed training. She tapped the silent alarm on her belt again, wired directly to the hardline, but the line remained dead, confirming her isolation. No backup, no eyes on her. Just her, the rifle, and the encroaching unknown. As the first intruder breached the fence, slipping through like smoke, the group fanned out. Amaya's mind raced through possibilities. Drill gone awry? Or something sinister. She didn't call out. Warnings could tip her hand. Instead, she shouldered her M4, suppressor threaded on, and waited for the move. It came swift. A flashbang arced from the second silhouette's hand, tumbling end over end before detonating in a blinding eruption of light and thunder. The blast lit the night like a false dawn, designed to stun and disorient. Amaya closed her eyes instinctively, shielding them from the glare, and counted to 3 in her mind, a reflex drilled into muscle memory from ops long buried. The count bought her precious seconds as the afterimage faded. She popped up from cover, adopting a solid shooting stance, feet planted shoulder width, knees slightly bent for stability, core engaged to absorb recoil. A flashbang overwhelms senses with intense light and sound, leaving targets reeling. Timing your recovery is key to turning the tables. Suppressors quiet the muzzle blast, muffling reports to whispers and preserving night vision while concealing your position. She fired a controlled pair, 2 precise shots, the familiar motion fluid and surgical, honed from Tier 1 days she rarely spoke of. The lead intruder crumpled mid-step, a clean hit to center mass. The second spun sideways, clutching his shoulder before dropping. The suppressed rounds barely echoed, swallowed by the wind. In that heartbeat, a fleeting image flashed in her mind. Declan's silhouette in a distant compound, his voice a ghost whisper. "Stand firm, Amaya," a shadow from Night Ember that grounded her resolve.
The remaining 2 hesitated, shadows freezing in the dim red glow from her console. They weren't amateurs. Their gear suggested training, tactical vests, night optics, but something felt off, too aggressive for a standard red team exercise. Amaya repositioned low and fast, her movements not the clunky infantry shuffle, but precise, almost elegant, like a dancer in the dark. Blood trickled from a superficial graze on her arm, not hers, splatter from the fallen, but she ignored it, focus unbreakable. The night pressed in, dust coating her lips, but she was the guardian here, the quiet force no one expected. Are they an authorized red team or strangers wearing the test as a mask? The hesitation broke like a dam, the 2 remaining intruders splitting paths in the dust-choked night. One dropped low, crawling toward the auxiliary tower, a skeletal structure housing backup comms relays, its outline barely visible against the starry void. The other veered right, fumbling with a compact device at the exposed auxiliary line, a secondary cable snaking from the ground like a vulnerable artery. Amaya Whitaker tracked them both from her repositioned cover, her breaths measured and deep, resolve steeling her against the wind's relentless assault. The graze on her arm stung faintly now, a reminder of the fray, but she pushed it aside. Focus was her armor, forged in ops where hesitation meant endings. The crawler reached the tower base, scaling the first rungs with quiet efficiency, perhaps aiming to sabotage or eavesdrop. Meanwhile, the planter attached the sniffer, a sleek, blinking gadget designed to intercept data flows, its red LED pulsing like a heartbeat in the dark. Amaya's eyes widened fractionally. She recognized the tech from intel briefs, a probe that could siphon secrets if left unchecked. But she had prepared for contingencies like this. With a swift motion, she reached the auxiliary switch on her console, pulling the line offline in one decisive flip. The sniffer fizzled, its light dying as the auxiliary isolated, but the main hardline, her morning's labor, hummed on undisturbed, preserving Echo's faint lifeline. She moved then, low and fluid, the familiar motion echoing her Tier 1 roots, silent footstalls, body coiled like a spring. Closing on the planter first, who knelt oblivious in his task, she flanked wide to avoid his peripheral. "Freeze,"
she commanded, voice a low whip crack that cut through the static-laden air. He spun, weapon rising, but she was faster, disarming him with a practiced strike to the wrist, the rifle clattering away. Zip ties from her kid secured his hands in seconds, her knee pinning him down as she bound his ankles for good measure. Live capture prioritizes restraint over lethality when intel is at stake, adhering to condensed rules of engagement that demand proportional force and immediate threat assessment. Chain of custody follows. Secure the detainee, log the scene untouched, and transfer under protocol to prevent evidence tampering or rights violations.
The crawler, alerted by the scuffle, paused midway up the tower, turning to fire a wild shot that pinged off the barricade. Amaya rolled aside, suppressor whispering as she returned fire. A leg hit that sent him tumbling down with a grunt. He crawled feebly, but she closed the gap, binding him alive amid his curses. Blood smeared her sleeve, not hers again, but the night air cooled the adrenaline rush, her inner state a calm sea amid the storm. These weren't mere testers, their gears screamed intent, the sniffer a tell of deeper malice. Who had fed them the auxiliary's location? Only a handful knew its quirks, Boone, perhaps Vance from overheard chatter? The thought gnawed as she secured the scene, rifle scanning for more shadows. The base remained blind behind her, but Echo stood, her quiet preparations the difference between breach and barrier. Who inside the base knew about this auxiliary line? Minutes ticked by in the tense hush following the breach, the night air thick with the metallic tang of gunfire and the settling dust that coated everything like a shroud. Sergeant Amaya Whitaker stood over the secured scene at Checkpoint Echo. 2 bodies down, 2 bound and breathing, the sniffer device inert beside the auxiliary line. Her rifle still warm in her grip, she scanned the horizon one last time, relief mingling with a gnawing suspicion that this wasn't random. The blackout persisted, the base a distant silhouette of flickering emergency lights, but her hardline console hummed faintly, a testament to her foresight. Then came the rumble, APCs thundering in from the northern approach, tires churning sand as the quick reaction force deployed. Soldiers spilled out, flashlights slicing the darkness, voices sharp with urgency. Perimeter secure, hostiles down. They fanned out, securing the fallen intruders and the captive pair, their movements efficient but edged with disorientation from the jammed comms. Lieutenant Elena Park was at the forefront, her sidearm drawn, eyes locking onto Amaya with a mix of concern and admiration. "Sergeant, you held the line alone?" Park rushed forward, helping to zip-tie the crawler's wrists tighter while glancing at the carnage. "Report when ready. We'll get this to command."
With radios still a hiss of static, Amaya nodded, pulling a notepad from her vest, a low-tech fallback she'd always carried. She jotted the salute report in precise script. Size, 4 operatives. Activity, breach, sabotage attempt with sniffer. Location, southern fence, auxiliary tower. Unit, unknown, no insignia. Time, 0425 hours. Equipment, hydraulic cutters, flashbangs, suppressors, data probe. Handing it to Park, she said softly, "This gets the intel flowing. No digital trail yet, but it's clean." Park took the paper, folding it carefully. "You're teaching me more than marksmanship tonight, Sergeant. This bridge, it's what keeps us standing." As the QRF consolidated, Commander Rourke emerged from the shadows, his boots crunching gravel. He surveyed the scene with scorched iron eyes, then approached Amaya directly. Without a word, he reached into his pocket, tapping his own challenge coin against hers, a subtle clink that resonated like a shared vow. The gesture spoke volumes. The coin was the true signal, a quiet emblem of trust among those who'd walked the black, not the visible tattoo that drew mockery. It was the hidden bond, the real marker of what she'd protected all along. Rourke's gaze held hers, a nod of unspoken gratitude, before he turned to direct the team. Amaya felt a warmth cut through the chill. Relief, yes, but laced with deeper questions about the auxiliary's exposure. The QRF hauled the captives toward the DPCs, the night settling into an uneasy stillness before the full takeover. Flashlights danced over the fence, illuminating the breach like a wound. Amaya pocketed her coin, suspicion coiling tighter. Whose name will the access logs call out?
Dawn crept over Camp Red Rock like a cautious ally, the first pale light filtering through the dust haze horizon and chasing away the night's shadows. Power flickered back online in fits and starts, generators humming to life as tech teams restored the grid. The blackout's grip loosened, but its echoes lingered, whispers of vulnerability in the air, mingled with the scent of cooling earth and faint gunpowder. In the command center, a low buzz of activity replaced the chaos. Officers poring over reports, the clack of keyboards punctuating urgent conversations. Sergeant Amaya Whittaker entered quietly, her fatigues still marked by the night's grime, the salute report from her notepad now digitized and circulating. Relief washed over her, but the gnawing questions from the breach coiled tighter. Who had known enough to target the auxiliary? Lieutenant Ilana Park and Lieutenant Harlan Boone huddled at a secure terminal, their faces illuminated by the screen's glow. Boone, his earlier haste evolved into steady focus after Amaya's lessons in precision, initiated the deep dive. Let's pull the access logs, anything illegal or anomalous prior to the blackout. If that sniffer was planted with intent, someone queried the systems. Park nodded, her notebook open, cross-referencing the salute details. Together, they navigated the encrypted database, filters narrowing to timestamps hours before the hum that heralded darkness. Lines of code scrolled by, timestamps stamping each entry like footprints in sand. There, a cluster of unauthorized pulls on the auxiliary line specs, masked but not erased, flagged by the system's audit trail. These queries hit just before shift change, Boone muttered, his voice laced with grim realization. Details on the hardline routing, exposure points, stuff only logistics leads would touch. Park leaned in, her sharp eyes tracing the user IDs. Only 2 or 3 people have that clearance. You, me, and Whittaker. This wasn't external. It's an inside slip. Amaya joined them, her presence a quiet anchor. The auxiliary was the weak link they exploited. Who accessed it? Boone highlighted the logs, respect evident in his deferential glance, echoing their earlier encounters where her vigilance had schooled him. As they compiled the evidence, Specialist Vance was summoned for debrief, entering with a forced casualness, his buzz cut damp with sweat under the center's lights. He scanned the room, eyes darting to the screen. Tough night, huh? Glad the main hardline held. That auxiliary was a sitting duck, right? Exposed like that, anyone could have hit it. The room stilled. Park's pen paused mid-note. Exposed how, Specialist? That detail's classified. Routing paths aren't in general briefs. Vance paled slightly, his smirk fading like mist in the dawn. Just overheard it somewhere. You know, chatter. Boone exchanged a look with Amaya, the team bridge strengthening in that shared glance, fairness demanding pursuit, but shadows of betrayal clouding the air. The slip hung heavy, a thread unraveling. Amaya's mind raced, Vance's mockery in the mess hall, his presence in whispers. Why did he need the base to fail at that exact moment? The slip hung in the command center like a noose tightening, Vance's words echoing in the sterile air as the pieces began to fall into place with inexorable clarity. Lieutenant Park wasted no time, her fingers flying across the keyboard to cross-reference the logs with Vance's access history. Boone leaned over her shoulder, his face hardening as patterns emerged. Queries not just on the hardline, but on red team protocols, timestamps aligning with unauthorized comms pings. Amaya stood nearby, her posture steady, but her mind whirling through the betrayal's implications. The dawn light strengthened outside, casting long rays through the windows that illuminated the dust motes dancing like unsettled spirits. Twist unfolded first in the interrogation room, a cramped space with a single cable and harsh overhead bulbs. Vance sat cuffed, his cocky demeanor cracking under the weight of evidence. It was just a drill escalation, he stammered at first, but under Park's relentless questioning, backed by the salute report and sniffer forensics, he broke. He'd manipulated the red team beyond its authorized scope, feeding them inside details on the auxiliary line to amplify the breach. Not for sabotage, but personal gain, to expose leadership failures, shift blame onto superiors like Boone, and fast-track his own promotion by destroying reputations.
The sniffer wasn't for data theft, it was planted to fabricate logs implicating others, a calculated ploy to climb the ranks on the ruins of trust. Everyone cuts corners, Vance muttered, defensively, his eyes avoiding Amaya's. The Uniform Code of Military Justice governs such internal investigations, ensuring due process while rooting out misconduct that erodes the chain of command.
Amaya felt a chill despite the warming day. The human core of it all, personal ambition clashing against the quiet sacrifice that bound the base. But the deeper twist came privately, away from the glare, in Colonel Whitaker's office, where Commander Rourke pulled her aside. The room smelled of old coffee and polished wood, a sanctuary amid the storm. Rourke's eyes, distant and scorched as ever, softened as he confessed softly, his voice a gravelly whisper carrying 5 years of burden. The salute that day, it wasn't protocol. It was a life debt from Night Ember. Amaya's breath caught, memories flooding back, the off-books op in shadowed valleys, Declan Hoyle's silhouette against a compound wall, his final words echoing, "Choose the right fight, Amaya. Get them out." Declan had died in her stead, taking the fatal round meant for her during the extraction, sacrificing himself to save the team. Rourke, witness to it all, had hidden the truth to protect her, burying records, shielding her from scrutiny that could unravel her quiet life. "I owed him, and you, for pulling us through," Rourke said, tapping the coin once more, its clink a seal on the revelation. "Choose the right fight," he added, his one-line lesson an echo of Declan's ghost. In that moment, a voicemail played in Amaya's mind, her mother's voice, aged and warm from a call weeks ago. "When no one's looking, keep your standard, honey." It grounded her rebirth, trust earned in fire now reborn in light. The salutes, the coin, they marked not just survival, but the hidden guardians who stood when others faltered. As Vance was led away, reputations intact, but lessons etched deep, Amaya stepped into the sun, the eagle head tattoo a quiet emblem of what endured.
In the wake of the revelations, the base transformed under the strengthening sun, a ripple of quiet reckoning spreading through Camp Red Rock. Specialist Vance was cuffed and led away by MPs, his head bowed, the weight of his ambition now chains of consequence. The command issued swift justice, but with a measure of mercy. No careers utterly shattered, just lessons carved deep for second chances. Colonel Whitaker, no blood relation to Amaya, but now bound by respect, called an assembly in the mess hall that afternoon. The air carried the familiar sense of coffee and stew, but the usual chatter was subdued, soldiers standing at attention as he took the podium. His voice, steady and gravelly, carried across the room. Last night exposed fractures, but it also revealed strength. We underestimated Sergeant Amaya Whitaker, mocked what we didn't understand. Her vigilance at Echo turned a breach into a stand. On behalf of the chain, I apologize publicly. She's not just logistics, she's the backbone we lean on. Murmurs of agreement followed, heads nodding in the crowd. Lieutenant Elena Park stepped forward, her eyes bright with purpose. "Sir, with respect, let Sergeant Whitaker teach us. OPSEC protocols, hardline maintenance. She's bridged generations already. Make it formal. We all stand taller learning from her." The colonel nodded, the proposal hanging like a promise of growth. Amaya, standing at the edge, felt the warmth of validation, but it wasn't what she sought. She declined the offered promotion and medals, her voice calm amid the applause. "Thank you, but my post is Echo. That's where I serve best. Watching the horizon, others forget."
She returned to Checkpoint Echo as dusk painted the hills in soft golds and purples, the wind whispering through the fences like an old friend. The hardline she'd serviced hummed quietly beneath the sand, its payoff undeniable. It had saved the base, preserving that faint glow when darkness swallowed everything else. Alone at her station, rifle at rest, Amaya pulled a worn envelope from her pocket, a letter to her mother, penned in the quiet hours after the breach. "Dear Mom," it read, "the nights here test us, but I've learned what Dad always said. Stand firm, even in the shadows.
I will stand there when no one is looking, guarding the unseen. Love, Amaya. She sealed it, the words a personal elixir, healing old wounds with purpose renewed. As night fell, a young soldier passed by on patrol, pausing to salute her first. Crisp, unprompted, his eyes holding quiet awe. The desert wind carried the gesture away, a gentle close to the storm. Stand. If this story of hidden guardians inspired you, share in the comments about the quiet people you've met, the ones who stand when no one's watching, holding the line with steady hearts. Like and subscribe to Silent Ranks for more true legends hiding in plain sight. What do you think was the real signal she carried? Drop your theories below.